Good morning. It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. Members, when you're seated, please stay where you are. Do not change your seats. Item number 1, information papers issued since the last meeting. The Secretariat has not issued any papers since the last meeting. Item number 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. Kindly note that the regular meeting was supposed to take place at 10:45 on the 7th of March. However, there will be the 2 plenary sessions from the 4th to the 5th of March. I suggest that the regular meeting is rescheduled to the 18th of March, Tuesday, from 4:30 to 6:30. The administration proposed the following items. First, 2025-26 to 2027-28 triennial recurrent funding allocation to University Grants Committee. The other item is under discussion with the administration. We will notify you as soon as we get an update. Any suggestions, any comments? If not, next item. Item 3, proposal by Honorable Lillian KWOK to form a subcommittee on promoting the development of integrated education in Hong Kong. I believe you have all received the letter from Ms. KWOK. I will give Ms. KWOK a few 1 to 2 minutes to go over her proposal. Thank you. In relation to support to special education needs students in their studies and their work, there are a lot of problems. Data shows that a lot of the suicide cases are students with SEN. A lot of resources has been devoted to mainstream education for integrated education. But since its inception, we have not done anything else. There is a 3-tier emergency support. There is the form of assistance, subsidy, and other forms. But how do these support measures help SEN students integrate into the community and the schools? We have not had a comprehensive picture at all. I propose to form this subcommittee to get a comprehensive look in the development of integrated education in Hong Kong. That should be a review and planning for the future. This ties in with the country's strategy on education development. It was mentioned for the first time in national strategy. We need to take a comprehensive look. We can use our experience to help our country to develop integrated education. Members are aware of the reasons put forward by Ms. KWOK. Members, any views? You have 1 minute each. Professor William Wong. I'm involved in a lot of funding work. That is the IT lab. A lot of SEN students are involved. Their schools have made applications. It was very well received. Special tools are used by some other schools to help students. We need to learn from these experiences. I hope that the subcommittee will also look into experience of other places. Say, for example, the use of AI tools to help students. 2, we can use AI to learn and to teach. When it comes to vocational education, we also need to consider the use of AI. I hope the subcommittee will look into it as well. Next, Mr. Teck Chi Yuen. Dr. Teck Chi Yuen. I support the proposal. In our line of work, we have received complaints from parents or from teachers about the operational difficulties of schools. I remember that integrated education was first introduced in 1993. There was a steering committee set up for that. The work at that time was rather targeted, but now is fragmented. It's a regression. Today's education system does not focus on targeting on the needs of students. Perhaps now is an opportunity. If there is resources available, I hope there will be an improvement in the work of integrated education. Integrated education is intertwined with special education. I hope that we will also spend time to look into special education as well. Mr. Tang Fei. I agree with the proposal to form the subcommittee. Frontline officers of integrated education are teachers, but it's not their sole but it's not just on them. It involves educational psychologists as well as social workers. We should not just focus on frontline teachers because that will not be enough. I agree with what Dr. Tick said. There is a differentiation between integrated education and special education. The latter has their own committees and head of schools committee, at least two. But there seems to be not really any committees or associations about integrated education. We don't have the responsibility to help them set up committees, but perhaps this is another line of work that can be considered. Dr. Lau Chi-pang. Yes, we can set up this committee, but we need to look at its terms of reference. I understand that the scope of SEN is getting wider. So there is a difference between our understanding of SEN nowadays from when it first came into existence. I wonder if this analogy is right. Just now, we've just had the Paralympics. We have athletes with disabilities. There is a very clear delineation. Different levels of impairment are treated differently or handled differently. Well, you can't just put them in the same pool to compete. Of course, classroom is not a competing field, but it's difficult for a single teacher to handle 10 students of different special needs. In some schools with integrated education, perhaps there are more SEN students than non-SEN students. Yes, we can continue to implement integrated education in schools. Should we separate them? Thank you. Next, Reverend Peter Kuhn. I echo what Mr. Lau Chi-pang said. In the earlier days, when we talk about integrated education, we were talking about students with physical impairment. Say, for example, visually impaired or mobility impaired. It's easier to help them integrate into mainstream schools. But nowadays, schools find it difficult to handle them, and if they don't get any SEN students, then they would be glad. If the scope is too wide, then it is difficult to implement it. If you don't know how to distribute students with different needs, and you just randomly allocate some students to schools, it will be difficult. We need to have a clear look into integrated education and whether the current system is a suitable one. If we also look into articulation is too wide, it may not be appropriate for the subcommittee to work on that. Perhaps we'll hear from Ms. Lillian KWOK. Yes, there are many different types of SENs. We need to take stock of the resources available and what the problems are. In year 2000, there was the formal implementation of integrated education. We need to look at whether there is a difference now. What is the ultimate objective of integrated education? We want to help students with SENs, whether it's a physical impairment, mental impairment, whether they are ethnic Chinese students or non-ethnic Chinese students. We do need integrated education. We want to look at the different types of support and the general direction of development. We also need to look at optimal use of resources and how to help SEN students to integrate into mainstream schools as well as the general community. We need to foster a general atmosphere that is conducive to integrated education. That is the aim of the subcommittee. Thank you. Should we replace the word promote with review? Do you agree, Ms. KWOK? We started with the word review. That was my original proposal. My concern is that after the review, we have identified problems. Will we make suggestions? That's why I changed it to promote. I see that in the first line of the third paragraph of the letter, there are the words comprehensive review. So that's in line with what members said. I understand members' views. It's rather unanimous that they agree with the forming of a subcommittee. This is the last year of our term, and there are a number of subcommittees on the waiting line. Integrated education and SEN students are close to your hearts. There are currently 10 subcommittees on policy issues. We think that their work will complete by May or June. If that goes according to plan, there may be a slot for this committee to start work this year, but the number of meetings available may not be that many. Do you agree with the forming of this subcommittee? Yes, the word review. There are no objections. So in the name of the panel, we will propose to form a subcommittee on reviewing the development of integrated education in Hong Kong. We'll be on the waiting list. If there are no other questions, we go into the next item. Item 4, Upholding Teachers' Professional Conduct. Paper number CB bracket 3127/2025. Bracket 02 and 03. We invited Dr. KWOK Ling, Secretary for Education, and Ms. Lee Wai Ping, Principal Assistant Secretary, to join us. They are already here. We will first hear from the Secretary.
Thank you, Chairman. Education is the foundation for building a strong country and rejuvenating the nation. The country recently issued the 2024 35 Master Plan on building China into a leading country in education, which clearly sets out the goal of building China into a leading country in education by 2035 in order to support the country's modernization. Cultivating a high-quality professional teaching force is one of the key missions. As emphasized by President Xi Jinping, teachers should possess the moral sentiment with what they say as guides for learners and what they do as examples of the times. The Education Bureau have been attaching great importance to the professional conduct of teachers, apart from providing relevant guidelines, enhancing training and strengthening the culture of teachers' morality and ethics. We have performed a gatekeeping role firmly to prevent improper persons for becoming teachers. I will talk about the measures to uphold teachers' professional conduct. We provide clear guidelines for school. In 2022, the Education Bureau promulgated the guidelines on teachers' professional conduct, which ask the schools to regularly circulate the guidelines to the teachers and explain to teachers the school's expectation regarding the performance through various channels. The schools should also improve the teachers' appraisal system with a view to objectively assessing teachers' performance in teaching and professional ethics, thereby maintaining the professional standards and image of the teaching force and safeguard the interests of the students. The Education Bureau will also regularly update the content of the guidelines and promote it to the trade. In 2023, the Bureau also issued a circular on appointment, and in June, we also issued a letter reminding schools what to pay attention to. The schools should check the records of the teachers. For teachers who have left the profession for 1 year, they have to make declarations on the criminal records so that schools can know more about the teachers before they appoint them. The schools should also ask teachers to read the guidelines so that they know what is expected of them. Second, on enhancing teacher training, we have put in place we have taken action to strengthen the teaching force by instilling the spirit of outstanding educators and integrate such spirit in cultivation and training of teachers. We have strengthened teachers' awareness on relevant professional code of conduct and legislations. We have also arranged pre-service teachers join mainland study tour, and teachers that have been promoted to a high rank are also asked to take the mainland study tours. We have a bilingual versions of the TE standards and a training package on teachers' professional values and conduct. And we have edited the highlights of the 5th GBA Forum on Teachers' Professional Ethics into a number of short videos and uploaded onto our website. In terms of strengthening the cultivation of teachers' morality and ethics, the Bureau have been working with different entities to promote teachers' morality and ethics. We support the GBA Forum on Teachers' Professional Ethics, for example. And we have also organized the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China Forum on Moral Education for School Principals. And since 2024-25, we have added the Award for Budding Teacher and Award for Education Innovation under the Chief Executive's Award for Teaching Excellence. In order to enhance professional image and social status of teachers, raise the social recognition for the teaching profession, and reinforce the culture of respect for teachers, we also firmly perform the gatekeeping role. Starting from 2023-24 school year, all newly appointed teachers in public sector schools, direct subsidy scheme schools, and kindergartens joining the kindergarten education scheme are required to obtain a pass result in basic law and national security law test in order to be considered for appointment. And starting from 2021-22, every 3 years, we conduct criminal record check on all registered teachers every 3 years. The first round of checking has been completed. And in December 2024, we have started another round of criminal records checking. If there is any unintentional or intentional omissions, we will take action. And we will handle cases seriously in accordance with the Education Ordinance. And we act in accordance with the guidelines, and we have zero tolerance on misconduct, and we will play our gatekeeping role to punish our black sheep in the industry. We will continue to strengthen our efforts in training and promotion, and we will enhance the management of teachers and foster and cultivate their ethics and morality. And we will also work on teachers' entry into the profession, appointment, and management so as to ensure that all teachers allowed to teach in schools are fit and proper persons. That's all from our presentation. I welcome questions from members. Thank you. Members who would like to speak, please press the request to speak button. I'm sure that all of you are concerned about this issue. For better time management, I'll allow each member 4 minutes, including question and answer. Please leave some time for the administration to give a reply. Thank you. Mr. Benson-Look. Thank you, Chairman. Starting from paragraphs 13 to paragraph 17, well, they're about handling teacher registration matters rigorously and seriously punishing the black sheep. So from the perspective of protecting our youth and students, I agree that for teachers who have committed misconduct or have criminal records, they should leave the profession. As set out in the paper, offenses committed by the teachers relate to theft, child abuse, and deception. For serious professional misconduct, they are mainly about going beyond teacher-student relationships and even improper physical contact with students. So I don't think we should tolerate any of these. And the figures are quite worrisome. Under paragraph 15, say if we compare 2024 to 2023 and 2022, in 2024, the number of cancellations of teacher registration, that's 3 times of that of 2022. Same goes for written warning and reprimand letter. I wonder why there's such a surge. And the administration said that that's because of the revelation of cases arising from the criminal record check. So I wonder if the black sheep remained in the profession in the last 2 years, despite having criminal records or committed misconduct. Should we, say, carry out criminal record check once every year instead of once every 3 years? For teachers that have committed criminal offenses, shouldn't we be made aware of it instantly? Second, it is said that most of the teachers that have committed criminal offenses or misconduct have left the teaching profession. I wonder what happens with the rest of the teachers who have not left. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you. Regarding the surge in numbers of cancellation of teacher registration and other letters, as mentioned in the paper, it's due to the revelation of cases arising from the criminal record check. We did uncover 300 teachers who have committed such acts, as 301 have left the teaching profession. They did not declare the offenses to the Education Bureau because they have left the profession, and 32 of them are still in service. We followed up on them and we canceled their teacher registration and reprimand them when it's appropriate, depending on the nature of the acts that they have committed, how relevant it is it to the teaching profession. As we mentioned, we conduct checking once every 3 years. Can we increase the frequency? Well, because criminal records is updated only once every 3 years, so we think that the frequency rate is cost-effective, and after the first round of checking, we'll have covered most of the omissions. You ask how many have left the teaching profession. Well, even for those who have left, if we are to disqualify them, we still do so because even though they have left the teaching profession, they can still rejoin. That's why if we uncover that they have criminal records, we disqualify them, whether or not they're still in the profession. Thank you. I'll read out the names, so press the button. Professor Priscilla Ng, Reverend Peter Kun, Dr. Chi Yun, Professor Lau Chi Pan, Mr. Chu Kok Kun, Mr. Lam Chun Sing, Mr. Dennis Leung, Professor William Wong, Mr. San Ling Ng, Dr. David Lam, and myself, Professor Priscilla Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad that we're talking about teachers' professional conduct at the first meeting in the year of snake. As a practitioner in the education profession, we know that secondary education affects people the most. When we are developing AI, implementing digital education, I have two observations. Having seen so many problems with secondary education, we are concerned if our teachers are patriotic enough to influence our students on morality and ethics of our teachers. I think that the teachers should be the role model themselves because secondary students are easily influenced by their teachers. There are two ways for us to deal with it. We have the Chief Executive's Award for Teaching Excellence. You said that there are 50,000 teachers who have passed the Basic Law and National Security Law tests. But I wonder how many of them have not passed. Have all of the teachers passed the test? Having passed the test doesn't mean that they are patriotic. You have a mainland study tours for promoted teachers. Because if we can train the teachers right, then the students would then act right. Well, those with criminal records, of course, cannot join the profession. But as someone in the law or legal profession, from hearing to judgment, sometimes it took a long time. How do we deal with teachers who have committed, say, sexual harassment? Apart from criminal offenses, for teachers who have twisted the Basic Law or National Security Law in their teaching, is there ways for us to deal with these teachers? Thank you. Secretary. First, for in-service teachers, there are some 70,000 of them. 51,000 have passed the Basic Law and National Security Law test because currently we ask the teachers to pass the test appointment for those that are in service because they have not changed schools. That's why they have not taken the test. For those who are to be promoted or are appointed at a new school, they need to pass the test before they can be hired or promoted. As there are more teachers who have passed the test, we'll look into whether we should ask everyone to take it. Well, there are a lot of teachers who take the test on their own initiative. Second, on cultivating a patriotism among teachers. Well, apart from new teachers having to take or go to mainland study tours, for different teaching fields or teachers in different fields, we have dedicated tours for them, and we also have various training programs for principals and teachers so that they can learn about the latest development of the mainland in person. Third, on the criminal record check once every 3 years. Well, when we receive complaints, for teachers who have committed criminal offense, they must notify the schools. The schools will suspend the teachers immediately, so the teachers will not teach while undergoing legal hearings. But sometimes, because the legal proceedings are still going on, we cannot complete the investigation.
I'd like to put in a quick word. But there are still about 10,000 or so teachers that have yet to pass the tests. I suggest that you require them to take the test in their continuing education requirement. They should not lag behind. That's the basic requirement. Yes. We have thousands of training courses on basic law every year. Thank you. Next, Reverend Peter Kuhn. Thank you. A member asked this question, but still I am somewhat unclear about some figures. Talked about 3 years and there is a lag. Perhaps in 2022 you check the previous 3 years, and in 2023 you check the previous 3 years, and that's the same for 2024. However, the figures have shot up. Some registrations have been cancelled because of a criminal record, but for written warning, it has jumped up as well. It has jumped from 43 to 149. Is it because you have tightened your grip, or is it because the conduct of teachers have fallen very quickly recently? Is it the case that now you have a zero tolerance approach? That's why the number has gone up. If that is not the case, maybe there are other problems. We've been very clear about the requirements on the professional conduct of teachers. There is an upshot in 2024. The checking of criminal records every 3 years started in December 2021. We need to take follow-up actions, and we have used 2 years to handle all the cases we have discovered. It's not the case that we have changed our standard or criteria. Well, we have the education ordinance, we have the subsidy provisions, and we also have the guideline for teachers. We use these to assess teachers' conduct. Well, out of the 71 cancellation, 49 of them came from the criminal record. Well, 149 warning letters, written warning seems to be rather numerous, but 94 cases are a result of our criminal check. Next, Dr. Teck Chi Yun. Thank you. Teachers are very important. We all have teachers that have made a difference in our lives. We do have certain requirements on the conduct and virtue and moral standards of teachers. We do need to take a deterrence approach so that there will be confidence from the community. We're talking about an increase by 300% in the number of cases. The Secretary explained to us that is a result of their criminal check. But in the past few years, we have received a lot of cases related to social events. And these were not there in the past. Is it because of social events, and that's why there are cases involving teachers requiring your following up. In 2024, out of the 304 cases, how many of them are related to social events? I'm not talking about criminal records or other offenses. I am only talking about disciplinary actions relating to cases of social events. In the past, there was a committee of teachers' professional conducts. I understand that the members are education practitioners, teachers, principals. Now there is no longer this Council on Professional Conduct in Education. It's changed to administrative-led. Do they have a set of criteria? I don't want to give the impression that the executive has too much influence and involvement. So now we don't have the Council on Professional Conduct in Education. It's the government that takes the lead in handling these cases. So are there any criteria? And how do you explain about concerns in relation to political influence? There are 71 cases. Oh, the total are 300. I want to ask about them as well. There are about 4 cases that is related to events in 2019. That is in relation to cancellation of registration. I want to clarify. 4 out of 71 or 4 out of 300? 4 out of 304. The council you mentioned, in relation to complaints against teachers or teachers' professional conduct, our handling has been more effective than before. I don't agree with what Dr. Tick said. The allegations of executive interference or political decision, I think these allegations are completely unnecessary and unwarranted. In the past, there was the council that handled cases involving professional misconduct. There was a serious backlog and it took years for them to go through the cases. The operation was not ideal. What do we do? How we deal with it now is like this. When a complaint is received, of course, schools will have to carry out an investigation. According to the result of investigation and the report of the IMC, the investigation and the report have to be reported to the education. Directorate grades of the Bureau are familiar with policies. In the committee, there are registered teachers. They will consider the information, the guidelines, refer to the curriculum, objectives, cases in Hong Kong, as well as the conduct, the guideline on teachers' professional conduct. There is also an appeal mechanism. So the efficiency and speed of handling cases of professional conduct is high. We try to protect the image of the teaching profession, as we also are doing better in the protection of the students. That's a very clear explanation. Next member, Professor Lau Chi-Pan. Thank you. We do need to uphold teachers' professional conduct. There is a series of measures put in place. Our country is a leading one in education. Teachers will have to answer questions, dispel concerns, as well as teach. I am an educator as well. Well, I talk about Confucius. Confucius is omnipresent. Confucius talked about the role of teachers. he talked about ethics and morals. What he talked about is that when you're in a classroom, you influence others. It's not the case that teachers are unable to do it. I have been a frontline teacher at one point. At that time, we were given the flexibility and the room to teach, but now we're getting more and more professional. And with that, there are more KPIs to meet. Are they given any room, any chance to influence students, to instill into them the correct value? Give them room. It's not the case that you give them $10, you require $10 worth of work being returned. Well, if there are too many KPIs, too many requirements, then there is no room and chance for teachers to influence others. You can do it in secondary schools. Well, apart from commending teachers, disciplining them, give them room to influence others. I have a teacher's registration. I obtained it eons ago. Is there a mechanism under which the registration has to be renewed, just like a driving license? Or you have to sit some tests before your registration is renewed? When someone joins the teaching profession in their 20s and until they retire, we're talking about 40 years or so. So is there a mechanism to review their conduct before their registration is reviewed? Did I hear it wrong? That for criminal record, you issue written warnings in these cases, or is there a differentiation? Say, for example, if it's a driving offense and it's treated differently from other offenses. So in relation to teachers with a criminal record, how do you handle these cases? Just a written warning? Professor Lau talked about pedagogy in the olden days, in the days of Confucius. Well, our country changed from an agricultural country to an industrial one, to now one that uses AI. Times have changed. The image of teachers have changed. You can't just stick to the old ways in modern times. The approach, the methods have changed, but the spirit remains the same. Teachers are there to teach. We need to pass on this spirit. However, when it comes to pedagogy, it has to move ahead with the times. You ask about criminal records. Are they handled with just a written warning? No. It's not an across-the-board approach. We look at the nature, gravity of the cases, and how it's related to the teaching profession. We also consider the judgment of the court. It's a comprehensive consideration. We consider whether the record has an impact on the teaching of the teacher. What about a renewal or review of the registration, say once every 10 years? We keep an open mind in this regard. We're mindful as to how we can do better when it comes to gatekeeping of the teaching profession. Any other members who would like to ask questions? I see that members are very concerned about this topic. We have 16 members who have pressed the button to speak. There are 10 waiting to speak. I would need to make good use of time. If there are no others, I'll draw a line here. We have Mr. Kenneth Leung joining. Next is Mr. KWOK Ling.
Please be succinct and observe the time limit. Thank you. I am the principal of a public sector primary school. It is said in the paper that schools have to check the certificate issued by previous schools when they appoint a new teacher. And I received complaints from a teacher saying that their previous employer put in false comments on their certificates. But according to the guidelines of the Education Bureau, on the certificate, only the rank, the years of service should be set out instead of comments. Well, it is common for schools to put comments on the certificate, and some even think that if the schools don't put any comment, it means that the teacher didn't perform well. So does the Education Bureau agree to such an approach of putting comments in the certificate? And will you handle the case of false comments on these certificates? And I ask the government to supplement with further information after the meeting, that is, setting out the offenses and professional misconduct involved in the 71 cases of cancellation of teacher registration. And I hope that in the future the administration will set this information out in the paper so that we don't have to follow up with you in the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. On the certificate of service, we ask the teachers to ask the schools to review the performance of the teachers regularly instead of asking them to put their comments on the certificates, because the certificates are supposed to include only information such as rank, years of service, and their duties. If you received any such complaints, please refer them to us so that we can look into the matter and follow up to see if there is any false comments or unfairness involved. Please let us know about the case so that we can follow up on it. We also attach a lot of importance to the appraisal of the teachers because good performance should be recognized. And if there is any deficiencies, we should ask the teachers to improve because that would undermine the interest of the students. The goal of appraising the teachers is not to punish them, but to encourage them to improve and adjust their performance. Thank you. Say, for example, if some teachers have received false certificate of service, can the Education Bureau follow up on it? Well, we rely on evidence. If the teachers think that there's false comments on the certificates, they should ask the relevant schools to substantiate their comments with evidence, and they should follow up on it immediately. Thank you. Mr. Chu asked you to supplement with further information on the details of the cancellation of teacher registration. Please do so. Next, Mr. Lam Chun-sing. Thank you. We have a clear mechanism to penalize teachers who have committed misconduct. But we should give teachers who have made mistakes a second chance. Just like the case with students, we should allow students to rectify their mistakes if they make one. We should not disqualify teachers just because of a single error. Unless sexual offenses are involved, which may cause long-term harm to the students, then we shouldn't. Well, we should disqualify them. But then for other misconduct or offenses, we should perhaps give them a second chance. You have issued reprimand letter, written warning, written advice. Now, in terms of follow-up action, well, how do the Education Bureau and schools follow up on these cases with the teachers? Will you look into whether the teachers have improved in, say, 6 months' time or 1 year time after they've committed the offense or misconduct? Is there a mechanism for schools to regularly monitor the performance of these teachers? Do they have to submit a report to the Education Bureau, for example, so that we can encourage the teachers to continue to work in the profession? I'd like to ask about paragraph 17 of the paper. You said that you have regular liaison with the police to see if there is any intentional or unintentional omissions in reporting of criminal records. I wonder how many cases of omissions are detected. Are there a lot of teachers who did not report their criminal records to the Bureau intentionally? We should not completely rely on the teachers to report their records. Do schools have a role to play here? Thank you. Secretary, as to how we follow up on cases of teachers having received, say, written warning or reprimand letter, schools have to make recommendations to the teachers who have received such letter or warning, but they don't have to report these to the Education Bureau, because if that's the case, then the workload of the schools would be even heavier. The Education Bureau does have an electronic platform for teachers' records. For schools that are appointing new teachers, they can check the relevant information on the platform to see whether they have received any reprimand letter or written warning before. So the record actually are on the platform. And schools that are appointing new teachers can also access the platform to look into the records of teachers. As to whether there is any omissions in reporting, well, for in-service teachers, whether or not they are convicted, as long as they are arrested for criminal offense, they have to report it to the schools, and schools have to then report it to Education Bureau. For teachers that are not working in schools or they have left the profession, when they join a new school, they have to declare whether they have any criminal records or whether they have ever been arrested before. For omissions in reporting, as mentioned, we have an electronic platform, and we also conduct criminal record check every 3 years. We have stepped up our collaboration with the police. The police will notify us if there's any teachers that have involved in criminal offenses. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Lang. Thank you. I thank the Secretary for taking a strong stance on certain areas. Well, a member talked about the social events. I don't agree with the nomenclature. I think that, well, we should name it black-clad violence. We should not beautify it to send the wrong message to in-service teachers. I have to declare interest. I'm a registered teacher. As the administration has clarified, the reason why we have a large number of cases is because we no longer have this Council on Professional Conduct in Education. That's why previously we had this council, and there was a large backlog of cases. Now all the cases are handled by the Education Bureau. I hope that they will keep up their good work in handling all the cases in a speedy manner. The reason why we see a surge in cases is because of the 3-year regular criminal record check. Can we increase the frequency? Say, for example, for housing department, they have a data matching system. They have amended legislation to allow the housing department to match their data with the land registry. Can the Education Bureau amend the legislation to identify the relevant records more speedily? Because the community at large and the parents want their children protected when they study in schools, and we don't want to see our young people being harmed in any way. Now, in terms of internal training, I don't think that's sufficient because, well, even though there are 3 teacher professional training days per year, I don't think that there is enough mention of leadership among teachers in our training. So I hope that the guidelines will be mentioned in every training. And I hope that we can enhance training for the members of the incorporated management committees. After the teachers have left the profession, they may join private organizations. I hope that we can step up monitoring of these teachers so that we can protect our young people. Secretary, thank you. I thank the member for the clarification. Second, I thank him for recognizing a teaching profession. On the criminal records check, he asked if we can step up data matching. The reason why we carry out criminal record check only every 3 years because, say, for in-service teachers, they must declare and notify us if they commit any criminal offense. Otherwise, they will be subject to a penalty. For the 3-year criminal record check, we're talking about teachers who have left the profession but rejoined without notifying us of their records. Second, we will ask the school sponsoring bodies to step up their education promotion of the guidelines. And all newly appointed teachers are asked to read the guidelines. We'll make sure that they understand the guidelines and the expectations that we have of them. For registered teachers working in private organizations, well, we are improving our monitoring mechanism to improve the image of the profession, and we are considering some new measures. Now, there are still 8 members who are waiting to speak on this item. Please observe the time limit. Professor William Wong, thank you. Now, education in the new era cannot depart from artificial intelligence. I think we should include online ethics in professional conduct. When teachers use AI, they should safeguard privacy of the students and confidentiality. That's my first comment. Second, I agree with what Professor Lau Chi-pan said. We should allow room and time for the teachers to reflect on their work. I think that given the heavy workload of the teachers, artificial intelligence would be a great tool for us to help teachers process administrative work so that teachers can focus on teaching and strive for excellence. These are my 2 comments. I have one question regarding this item. For teachers who have committed professional misconduct, if they're not serious, then the Education Bureau will issue reprimand letter, written warning, or written advice to them. I wonder what measures the Education Bureau have to assist the relevant teachers to improve their performance, to reshape their conduct.
Regarding the use of AI to create space, we are working on it. Regarding non-serious questions, reprimand letters, a verbal warning, each case is different. If it's related to teaching, or if it's a case that requires following up, it's mostly to do with teaching methods and relations with students. It will be handled by the school. If it's just general matters unrelated to teaching, if a reprimand letter has been sent and if the offense reoccurs, there will be an instant dismissal. There will not be any suggestions for improvement. It's a record of their wrongdoing. If it's wrong, it's wrong. You don't improve on it. You just don't do it again. Well, if there is a mentor to follow up on the case, then there is a chance for the person with a minor deviation to improve. If that is the approach you have adopted, then it may not be ideal. Well, if it is some irregularities in relation to the design of pedagogy, then there can be regular review. If it's a traffic offense, say careless driving, then it should not occur again. Next, Mr. Stanley Ng. Thank you. We have expectations and requirements of teachers. They have to have virtue and proper conduct. They teach our future generation. They are affecting our society and our future. That's why we have a higher expectation for teachers. A member talked about social events. I need to clarify one thing. It's a color revolution. It's Black Lives violence. In 2019, there was serious infiltration in our teaching profession. It was seriously affected. The Secretary talked about a handful of cases of teachers that have been disciplined as a result. It's because the government has just given them a slap on the wrist. However, we have to make sure that all the wrongs are made right. We do have to give teachers a chance to turn a new leaf, but we do need to step up our regulation. Is there a mechanism in our education system to prevent infiltration by color revolution and Black Lives violence? Back in 2019, there was color revolution infiltration in our education system. When it comes to national security, we have the national security law. But we do need a mechanism of prevention in our education system. I would like to know what measures the administration has to guard against infiltration, against interference or undue influence on teachers. But there were some organizations organizing training courses for teachers. They made use of the Chinese university to infiltrate the teaching profession. Are there mechanisms to guard against that now? In relation to school sponsors, how they can better manage the teaching profession, is there an oversight mechanism in place? Secretary. We learned a lesson from the Black Lab violence incidents in 2019. We have handled serious cases. Well, apart from prevention and stoppage, we have enhanced our education in terms of national security law and basic law. The member talked about infiltration. We guard against infiltration into the teaching profession and into the campus. We remind members to be on the watch for dubious donations and support. Schools need to get a better understanding of these organizations that approach schools to organize activities for teachers. Schools need to protect the campus and students. If the source of funding and the organizations are not well known, then they should be on the alert. They need to be mindful of organizations and events from political organizations and not teaching organizations or educations. Thank you. I think it's a very valid point. Dr. David Lam. Under the current mechanism, if a teacher has committed a criminal offense, after conviction, is there a time period within which a report has to be made to the Education Bureau? And in a declaration or report of criminal records to the Education Bureau, are there differentiations of different offenses, say for example traffic offenses or serious ones, or is it the case that they are required to report any criminal convictions? And after a declaration has been made, is there anything they can do, say a chance for representation or to be heard before they hear from the Education Bureau? From the time when an arrest was made or when they are involved in the case, that is, the law enforcement agency approached them, they have to make a report. Of course, it's down to the nature of the case. If it's speeding, it may not warrant an instant suspension. But if it's a case involving, say, sexual elements, in order to protect the students, our normal approach is to suspend the teacher immediately, awaiting for the result of the investigation. On the part of the Education Bureau, if a teacher is involved in a criminal proceeding, the Bureau will not take any action. We wait till the result of the case as to whether there is a conviction, and we also look at whether it's a breach of professional conduct before we make a decision. Dr. Starry Lee. Just now, someone mentioned about teacher training. I'm concerned about the design and operation of patriotic education. I understand that for new teachers and teachers aspiring to for promotion, there are training courses. There is one that is mainland study tour. When it comes to implementation of patriotic education, then it starts from the school. A lot of teachers were educated during the colonial days. They did not know much about affairs of our country. I do think that the medium to long-term goal is to have regular training courses. I've conducted some survey. Teachers would like to join these tours, but the tours take place during term. It's very difficult for them to join. Is it possible to require schools to systematically say every 1 or 2 years send teachers to study tours, say during summer holidays? If teachers are taken to the mainland on study tours for them to learn about the latest development of our country, will be a very good arrangement. I understand that currently it is not regular. And teachers told me that it's a tricky issue because it also involved holidays of teachers. Can you give me more information? In relation to teachers, in addition to professional conduct, we also need to be mindful that teachers are given a chance to teach and deliver results. The civil service is a mirror image of teachers. Teachers work hard to teach their students, but for some, maybe a lack of initiative or incentive, they don't perform as well. It's very difficult for principals or head of schools to handle these substandard teachers. There are KPIs, say for example, the academic and non-academic results of teachers. That can be an indicator. How can you translate it into an indicator for the performance of teachers? Have you considered that, Secretary? In relation to patriotic education, we cover different target groups: new teachers, in-service teachers, those who aspire to for a promotion. We cover different areas: geography, history. And the member talked about timing. We're talking about a large number of teachers. It can't be all. The activities can't all take place during holidays. There is a limit on the training hours of students and the timing of these trainings. So we need to make arrangements. So apart from learning about the basic law, national security law, as well as the affairs of the country, there are also other training areas. So apart from, there are study tours, there are immersion courses, there are also internship and other many different training courses. There are many student exchange activities during Easter, summer, and during these times there are also other learning activities. There are 3 teachers training day, and if it's combined with Saturdays and Sundays, there are 5 days. Yes, there can be mainland study tours over the long weekend, but teachers have to attend trainings on many different things, say mental health. But we have to be innovative. We have to do it right. In the past, the provisions in the education ordinance focus more on development, and it's rather tolerant. Substandard teachers will have a number of chances, and they will go through verbal warning, written warning before and disciplinary action is taken. Of course, we spend resources and time on teaching teachers, and we would like them to improve when advice is given. However, we want to be stronger when it comes to our gatekeeping role to keep the professional standard of teachers.
Ms. Lillian KWOK. Thank you, Chairman. The Secretary talked about cultivating our teaching profession. I see that they have dedicated much resources on it, but it's rather fragmented. I think that we have to consolidate some of the core courses. Can we ask pre-service teachers to undergo these training courses? I asked if in-service teachers were taught how to be a good teacher. During the first day of school, when I attended the education universities, I was taught that we should become teachers for the people. But it seems that the in-service teachers don't really know what morality and ethics they should uphold. I think that we have to prepare the teachers mentally before they join the profession. I agree with what the Secretary said. We have 3 days of teacher professional training or development days. I used to work in school, and I actually attended a mainland study tours and Taiwan study tours. I thank the Education Bureau for allowing us this possibility of going to the mainland and Taiwan for teacher professional days. Can we have more support? Say, for example, financial assistance. For large organizations or large school sponsoring bodies, they may have more resources. But for school that are of a smaller scale, they may have to use their subsidy. And there could be trade-off because sometimes they would choose not to go for study tours and instead spend the subsidy on something else. Can we allocate more resources to them? Also on mental health. We have cases of child abuse and child sexual harassment. I think that we have to attach more importance to the mental health of the teachers because, well, I think that we need to allow them room and time to reflect and to consolidate their work. There are other members who talked about the courses that they take and if there's infiltration. We trust government-funded courses, and I attended a course that was subsidized and funded by the government, and the title was very dubious. If you want to know more, I can tell you more. So I think that, well, please be mindful of the time limit. This is my comment. Thank you. Secretary, please be succinct. Thank you. On offering subsidy on mainland study tour for teachers, as we already have a number of exchange programs, we don't think that is necessary for us to allocate extra resources for school. Second, on the mental health of teachers, We have such elements included in the teacher training programs, and we also have a sunshine hotline to support teachers' mental health. Also, on the courses that is dubious, please, if you discover any of such courses, please let us know. Thank you. Next, Dr. Hui Saman Lee. Thank you. I was a chairman of the Committee on Values and Ethics. I see that the teachers' awareness on the professional conduct have enhanced. I think that today we're talking about a sense of responsibility among the teachers, and they should be aware of their teaching missions. I think that this is the core of today's discussion. We need to have strategies to prevent any misconduct. I see that the Education Bureau conduct criminal record check every 3 years, and in 2022, the guidelines were promulgated. But still, we are seeing cases of misconduct. Is there any ways or strategies for us to handle intentional omissions of reporting from teachers? Thank you. Secretary, as to how we can stop these kind of teachers from teaching, well, we can disqualify them. As mentioned, we have various gatekeepers. We rely on schools. And we also check the criminal records of all registered teachers. We have a notification mechanism with different departments. All these will help us stop this kind of teachers from entering the profession. As to enhance the sense of responsibility and mission among teachers, we've always been working on it. Thank you. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lang. Thank you. On providing pre-service teacher training and upholding teachers' professional conduct, I support them. Now, on the point of mainland study tours, I have a few questions. I'd like to ask about the mode of training. How flexible is it? Is there a requirement on the number of hours of training? Are schools the ones to make the decision? Last July, we passed the mandatory reporting of child abuse bill. I would like to ask about the progress of the guidelines of mandatory reporters. It is said in the paper that we should commend teachers who perform well, and there are different ways for us to commend them. But I wonder if there is any channels for knowledge sharing. How do we pass on the great work of the teachers? Secretary, 3 questions. Thank you. On the organization of mainland study tours. Well, the schools can make adjustment to the period of the study tours and the locations of training. We only ask that the schools offer 3-day teacher professional development dates. They are flexible as to what kind of activities to arrange. Upon the passage of the mandated reporting of child abuse bill with the ordinance, we'll review the guidelines that we have for schools so that they know how to implement the ordinance. Apart from awards, is there other ways for us to commend teachers? Well, we have school-based support program where we can identify teachers who perform well. Now, we are trying to encourage the use of AI and STEAM education. We have a school-based experience sharing sessions, and we have thematic sharing sessions among different teachers. Now it's my turn. I have looked into the guidelines on teachers' professional conduct, and there are some serious cases set out. There is a teacher who, without consent of the parents, carry out extracurricular activities with the students. And the teacher and the student stayed at the student's home without the presence of the teachers. And there was another case where teachers post messages involving coarse language. And that teacher was only issued with a warning letter, but he or she stayed in the profession. For teachers who have been issued with reprimand letter or written warning, if they choose to work in another school, will the school that is appointing this teacher be informed that the relevant teachers have been issued with a letter or written warning? Will the Education Bureau remind that school of the fact? Now, on criminal record check every 3 years, there were serious offenses committed by teachers that are not reported on the news. Will you be made aware of the relevant record of the teachers just by a click of a button on the computer? I think that the guidelines is a great tool for us to make sure that our teachers uphold professional conduct. But there are a lot of university teachers that are not bound by the guidelines because they are not registered teachers. But the conduct of a lot of university teachers are problematic. Can we extend the application of these guidelines to universities teachers? Thank you. Secretary. First, the chairman asked about the penalty handed down on certain cases. In the guidelines, we set out what should or should not be done. We hand down penalty based on the nature and the severity of the cases. We did explain the grounds for penalty. We take into account the case details, the facts, and the age of the students. Well, disqualification is a serious penalty because the teachers would be barred from teaching for good. They cannot even teach in tutorial classes. We don't have a penalty of suspension. In some other professions, they could subject their members to suspension of a certain years. And sometimes we're subject to the judicial review, so we have to be careful to make sure that the penalty is proportional to the severity of the case. Well, on your second questions, schools need to check the criminal records of their newly appointed teachers proactively with us. Last year, we received 17,700 inquiries from schools. Schools check the criminal records of their teachers before they even appoint them. For in-service teachers, we will be notified if they commit any criminal offense instantly. For criminal record check that is conducted every 3 years, that only apply to teachers who are joining new schools or joining the profession. I agree that we have to protect our students, we have to safeguard professional conduct. There are different ordinances governing the teaching profession. I see that a lot of schools have put in place clear guidelines on the recruitment of teachers in relation to the criminal records, the conduct, ethics, and morality of teachers. Thank you.
多謝晒局長。
Thank you. That's the end of this discussion item. Next, item 5, Public Works item. 3372 EP, a 30-classroom primary school at area 89 Northern Side, Tung Chung. Paper number CB bracket 3127/2025 04. This is a public works project under House Committee 3A. If members who would like to speak but has direct or indirect pecuniary interest, the interest will have to be declared before they speak. Well, I have a declaration to make. Let's see if other members have anything to declare. We have Dr. Jeff C., Undersecretary of Education, and Mr. Andrew Ngan, Principal Assistant Secretary, Infrastructure, International School and Statistics. Members who would like to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. Undersecretary, would you like to take us through the paper? Yes. May I start? Yes. We're still at the beginning of the Lunar New Year. I would like to wish all members a good Year of the Snake. The government plans to construct a 30-classroom primary school at Area 89 Northern Side, Tung Chung, to meet the demand for public sector primary school places from the development of Tung Chung New Town Extension. Currently, there are 130,000 residents in Tung Chung. From now to 2030, in the Tung Chung New Development Area, there will be an additional 180,000 residents. Currently, in that area, there are 7 subsidized schools. In 2025, the number of students stands at 4,600. Under small class teaching, every class will have 25 students. There will be a supply of at least 5,400 places in the area. With a new school, there will be an addition of 750 places, increasing the total number of school places to 6,150, which is enough to meet long-term demand. Area 89 has a reserved school site. It is the only site for school development. Other reserved site in Tung Chung Extension area is being used by other departments. They will be returned to the Education Bureau in 28-29. With the first public housing project starting, we need to construct a classroom. We need to construct a primary school for students to attend. In terms of public consultation, on the 8th of October 2024, we have consulted the Community Involvement, Culture and Recreation Committee of the Islands District Council. Members unanimously supported the project. We will make a funding application to the Finance Committee for the work to start. If we get funding approval, we will make funding approval to the Public Works Subcommittee and the Finance Committee in due course. Let me read out the name of members. Tang Fei, Benson Look, Hon Lillian, Lau Chi Pang, Lam Chun Sing, Chu Kwok Keung, Peter Kun, Lillian KWOK, Dennis Leung, Starry Lee, Stanley Ng, and myself. We have limited time. Each member will have 3 minutes. Anyone else who would like to join the queue? I think we will go beyond 12:45. If there are no others, I'll draw the line here. First, Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you. I speak in support of the project of the primary school at Area 89. The reason is straightforward. When it comes to planning for the construction of primary and secondary school, we consider birth rate, that is population projection. We've already been told that there will be a surge of population in Tung Chung. That is an objective indicator, unless you choose not to believe it. We also look at the catchment and other districts. If in another catchment there is an increase in the student cohort and there are not enough school places, then students can go to the next area. But it's difficult when it comes to Tung Chung. It's difficult for students to travel to another district, especially if they are primary students. So I think for these two reasons, we should support the construction of a 30 classroom primary school. I don't need an answer. Based on those two reasons, there should be a primary school in that area. Mr. Tang supports it. Next, Mr. Benson Look. This is the proposal to construct a primary school. I support it. As the paper said, we see that there will be an increase in population by 2030. It's quite a surge. So we need to put in place sufficient school places in that area. That's logical. The paper mentioned about Xu Yan Educational Organization, which is a school sponsor. Well, there is a long history. The site was allocated in 2002, and the project only starts now. I have some questions. Paragraph 8. The government said that, pre-construction work started in 2021. We're now in 2025. So a preparation time of 4 years. Does that explain the amount of work? Or are you just waiting for the demand to materialize? It's expressed in the district council that the supply will be exhausted in 2028. Well, there is a project cost of $500 million. If you start the works early, you may save on cost. So how do you strike a balance among these different factors before you make a decision to start? Undersecretary, thank you. I thank Mr. Look for his support. The site was allocated back in 2002 under the school allocation exercise on a fair and open basis. The site was allocated to Xu Yan Educational Organization. We've been monitoring the demand for public primary school places. As I said in my opening remark, we understand that there will be an increase of population in Tung Chung to 180,000. So demand for public primary school places will see a marked increase. We've started preparation work in 2021. We have an order of priority when it comes to public school projects. We have been doing advanced preparation. We liaise with different government departments, say the Architectural Services Department. We think it's an appropriate time to start the project, so we come to the LegCo to get members' support. Next, Dr. Hon Lillian. It's a project to construct a 30-classroom primary school. Under the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines, you will need at least 6,200 square meters for a 30-classroom primary school. In new development areas, there should be an additional space of 8% set aside. The site is not big enough. Have you taken that into account? Or can you tell us that there will be sufficient space for improvement of school facilities and development? Or will the limitation of the site area constrain long-term development of the school? Is there a mechanism in place to handle cases like this? Thank you. The member mentioned about the suggestion under the Hong Kong PSG, the site area of a 30-classroom primary school. The site suggested under the guidelines is comparable to the one in question. This is sufficient to provide everyday facilities. In the new campus, there are areas for physical activities and a nursery. There is also the provision of 2 meters of open space for each student, which is met. So we have met the requirements under the Hong Kong PSG. Next, Professor Lau Chi-Pang. I support the project. The reasons have been outlined in the paper and mentioned by other members. I would like to get more information when it comes to the design. The project cost should reflect the use of the latest technology and the most updated facilities. If that is not the case, other members will ask questions. There is a library, and that's all the information we get from the paper. Are you talking about bookshelves filled with books? But is it in line with the development of a smart city? A running track. From the diagram, I see that is dual lane, but just one single running track. So if students are running along it, then they will collide. There is a covered playground, which is a standard installation in a primary school for students to gather during rainy days. But there are 2 basketball courts in the open air playground. The basketball frame, is a height adjustable. When I was in primary school, the basket was so high that I was just throwing it into the air. So there are many different types of sports. How come it's designated as 2 basketball courts instead of 1 basketball court and 1 tennis court? The most popular type of sports involving a ball is football. So instead of basketball court, what about a soccer pitch? And I also see from the diagram that there is a photovoltaic panel on the roof. But in another diagram, in the plan, I don't see anything. There is just a bulk there. I just want to ask questions. I'm happy to receive a written reply. So can we have 2 mini football pitches there? 5 charging points for vehicles. Is that enough? There will be dozens of teachers. They drive to go to work. Would that be enough? And will the school be constructed using MIC? I think it's rather costly. Well, these are my questions for now.
但要認真考慮。
As Professor Lau said, no reply is needed. But can I give a brief response? I thank Professor Lau for his support for the project. Let me give you a brief reply. We adopt a no-frills approach in building the school. We have adopted MIC in this project for repetitive work such as classrooms and toilets. We used a MIC to save costs and speed up the construction time period. Well, the estimated cost is similar to other projects of the government. The member talked about the running track, the basketball court. I noted the members' views. We talked to the school sponsoring bodies on the design of the schools. The basket and the basketball courts are movable. Well, I think that we should let the schools design the height of the baskets. Well, some primary school students are quite tall these days. We should allow different students to participate in the same sports. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lam Shen-sing. I support the project, but I'd like to follow up on Mr. Benson Look's question. In 2002, you decided to allow the Shuyuan Educational Organization to operate the school, but it seems that nothing's been done in the meantime, leading up to 2020. The Tongchong New Town is quite populated already, but then the school can only be commissioned in 2029 to 30. Would it be better for us to plan or commission the school 1 to 2 years earlier? Because I am worried about insufficient school places in the district. Second, I have a suggestion. I hope that the Education Bureau will encourage schools to offer after-school care program. There is a similar scheme under the government in the Islands District. There are only 3 out of the 16 primary schools there that have participated in the after-school care program. I hope that you will continue to encourage the schools to offer such services. Because Tongchong is near the airport, with the commissioning of the 3 one-way systems, we need a large amount of manpower, including frontline workers. Women can work part-time there, but then we need to make sure that there is enough after-school care places to unleash a women workforce. Undersecretary, thank you. The member put 2 questions. First, as mentioned, after the site was allocated to Shuyuan Educational Organization in 2002, we regularly review when we should start the construction work. 13 years ago, when I joined the Education Bureau, I was made aware of the school allocation exercise. And at that time, I met with the representative of the Shuyuan Educational Organization, and we talked about the plan. Of course, we want to commission the school as soon as possible upon allocation, but we need to make sure effective usage of our resources. We need to make sure that there is enough demand for school places, because otherwise the schools may be forced to close. On after-school care program, that is a great scheme. In all 18 districts in the territory, there are primary schools that have participated in the scheme. And we've been working with the Social Welfare Department on it. And there is no upper limit to the number of schools that can participate. For interested primary or secondary schools, they can join it. We will continue to work with the Social Welfare Department to encourage more schools to join the program. There are still 6 members who would like to put questions. We only have 10 minutes left. I'll extend the meeting by 15 minutes. But please be succinct when you speak. Mr. Chi Kwok Kan, thank you. Well, there is a primary school in Discovery Bay that enjoy an advantage. That is, their catchment area is Central and Western District. So a lot of students in Tung Chung District want to study in that particular school in Discovery Bay. The Education Bureau claimed that because of transport restrictions in Discovery Bay, they should allow the school to enjoy such an advantage. But actually, the transport network of Discovery Bay is comprehensive enough. I've written to the Education Bureau 2 times, but the reply that they gave me was not reasonable. I talked to the Xuyan Educational Organization about this, and they said that they were not aware of it. I think that this is not right. The school places in the district has not been exhausted. And the Bureau has made several wrong estimations, and sometimes after school's been commissioned, they have to reduce the number of classes that they offer. I hope that the Bureau will work on the catchment issue of the primary school in Discovery Bay, and because otherwise it will cause unfair competition. Undersecretary, the member asked about the particular school and primary school in Discovery Bay. It was commissioned some 30 years ago. Back then, the public transport network was insufficient. In Discovery Bay, there was only a ferry service offered between Discovery Bay and Central. And it was projected back then that no secondary school will be constructed in Discovery Bay, and that's why at that time the Education Bureau and the School Allocation Committee assigned the catchment of the primary school as Central and Western District. We plan the catchment on a territory-wide basis. There are various stakeholders involved. The member talked about transport facilities. We have a mechanism to review the transport facilities and various factors on the catchment arrangement in the Islands District. We have no plan to change it, but we'll continue to collect views from stakeholders and review in due course. Chairman, because of this special arrangement for this primary school, conflicts arose, and this is not fair for other primary schools in the district. Reverend Peter Kuhn, please. Thank you. With the growth of population in the district, of course, I will not object to the construction of a new school. But when I first joined the LegCo, the cost of constructing a primary school was only $310 million, and the recent project that we approved amount to only $400 million. I wonder why this project cost so much. I think that this project is very expensive. And if this trend continues, I wonder how much we need to spend to build primary school in the future. I don't see anything wrong with using MIC in works project, but we should not use it in every single project. We need to make sure that the use of it is cost effective. I have asked around, and some contractors told me that you can save 30% of the cost if you don't use MIC. I wonder if this is the case for this primary school. Because I think that it would be cheaper if we don't use MIC. If you don't review it, we may have to spend some $600 million to build the next primary school. Undersecretary. Thank you, Reverend Kuhn, on the question about construction costs of the school. As I mentioned, the unit cost per gross floor area is similar to other works projects of the government. The Education Bureau have been working with the Architectural Services Department because they monitor the constructions of primary school across the territory. We've been reviewing our construction methods to see how we can lower the cost. That's why I mentioned that we adopt a no-frills approach in designing the school, and we adopt a standardized approach to minimize project cost. The member asked about MIC. We have applied it only to classrooms and toilets that are repetitive in their design. We have lowered the construction cost and shortened the construction time period. Next, Ms. Lillian KWOK. Thank you, Chairman. I support this project. In 2018, we kickstarted the pre-construction work, and there were 3,500 households that have been residing in Chongcheng. We don't have primary school in the area 89, so students have to take bus or minibus to reach other modes of transport in order to get to their schools, and they have to spend an hour to reach their schools. So I have a few questions. With the delay of this project, will you consider building a secondary school in the same area? Because some parents told me that their children had to spend a long time on traveling to schools, and teachers also told me that this situation is not conducive to their learning. Is it possible for us to shorten the construction period by using MIC? If your school is only commissioned in 2028-29, we can only have student intake by 2030. Is there ways for us to shorten the construction period? On Cashman 99, the Wyland School, that is the Wyland Primary School, you said that because we used to only have ferry service between Discovery Bay and Central. That's why you gave them certain advantage. And residents in Discovery Bay, well, in Central can only reach Tongchong via Discovery Bay, and they enjoy a 30% discount. For Pengchao residents, there is a ceiling to the transport subsidy, and they don't enjoy a discount anymore. I hope that you can review the catchment arrangement so that students can reach their school quicker and learn better. I hope that also the design of schools will be in harmony with the surrounding area to include elements of a country.
多謝各議員嘅支持。
Undersecretary, I'll give a quick reply. Tongchong Secondary Schools, we have reserved 3 sites. They are for secondary schools in Tongchong. Currently, other government departments are using these sites. There will be a subsidized secondary school in Area 89. We have started the advanced work. We will continue to monitor the demand and supply of school places in Tongchong. Regarding the school catchment area of Wailan Primary School, I have already answered that question. The third question of Ms. KWOK is about the environment. Chinese culture. This element should be incorporated into the design. We will forward your views to the school sponsor. Well, you have confidence in the Shiyan educational organizations because they are rich in Chinese culture and they have experience in running a school. Mr. Dennis Lam. The husband of the chairperson is Mr. Ip Kok Kim. I know him very well, and I also know a number of other people in related parties. But this is the government's decision. Nothing to do with me. There will be new public housing estates in Tongchong. The population will increase. The education policy says that primary school students do not need to go to a different district to go to school. For these reasons, I support the project, but I need some clarifications. There were 3 primary schools being reprovisioned in 2022. The average project cost reached $437 million. For this school alone is $594.3 million. So there is an increase by 37%. Well, which part of it is expensive? Is it related to the charging points? Is it related to the MIC construction method? Back in 2002, the Shiyan school was reprovisioned, but the plan was shelved. Is this project a way to make good your plan? Based on what reason was the school not reprovisioned, but now is construction from scratch? Well, you may spend a bit more time on the second part of the question. Just a quick reply in relation to project cost. I thank Mr. Leung for his support. Well, I've already gone through the reasons of the project cost. The unit cost is comparable to similar projects in recent days. tender assessment is ongoing. We're talking about an estimate cost of the project. I thank members for their concern. Perhaps when it comes to the project cost, we can have a detailed discussion in the Public Works Subcommittee. We will give you more information. But I can say to members with certainty that we attach importance to keeping the cost down. The EEB as well as the Development Bureau have circulars related to environmentally friendly design. So there is the requirement of charging points, which is incorporated in this project. School premises are not government buildings, but the ASD is involved in its construction. That's why we follow the joint circular of the Development Bureau and the EEB. We want to make contributions to achieve carbon neutrality in Hong Kong. I believe that a lot of people are watching the live cast of the LegCo. I'd like to say that, knowing someone from the school sponsor is a direct or indirect conflict of interest, and there is no need to declare, because in our line of work we come to know a lot of people who are involved in school sponsors. I support this project. As other members have pointed out, Tung Chung is a special area. We're all concerned about Tung Chung. We are happy to see that supporting facilities materialize for the community, because if primary school students have to travel to a different district, it will have a huge impact on their lives. I'm sure members will support this project. However, we have problems with our finances. There is a deficit. I asked the Undersecretary to make good his words. I'm sure more questions will be asked before we go to the PWSC. Is this figure, the project cost, the result of a vigorous compression of cost, or is there room for further improvement? Well, however, this issue is not about the school. Well, high construction cost is a problem for Hong Kong as a whole, but we still do need to try to do something about it. And we're not just talking about primary schools. There are also school places for secondary school as well. There will be an additional 180,000 people living in Tung Chung. This school will increase the supply by 750. So with this school being constructed, does it make it sufficient? And I heard from you that there are other school sites reserved. So can you tell me more about how you arrive at these figures? I thank Ms. Lee for her support. There is a policy for primary school students to study in the same district. We want the same for primary school students in Tung Chung. That's why we hope we will get members in this panel. We hope we will get support from members of this panel to construct the primary school in Tung Chung to meet the increased demand in the future. Before we go to the PWSC, we will give you a further breakdown of the project cost. More explanation will be given to dispel members' concern. About school places in secondary school, we do our planning on a territory-wide basis, and the demarcation of catchment area is different from that of primary schools. The catchment area is more numerous in the islands district when it comes to primary schools, which is different from secondary schools. We will continue to monitor the demand for secondary school places. As I mentioned that in relation to other sites, we have already started advanced work. We have plans to increase the number of secondary school places for the public sector. We'll continue to talk to stakeholders. Now it's my turn, and then Dr. David Lam will speak. He will have 1 minute. This is my personal stance. 23 years ago, Xi'an was awarded the site. Well, it's been 27 years since the reunification. I respect this school sponsor. They have been waiting for a very long time. I think the school sponsor is growing old if it were a person. I hope that the process will be expedited. They've been waiting for 23 years and then construction for another 4 years. The members has mentioned that it doesn't necessarily have to be MIC. You can use other construction methods if they are cheaper and more efficient. And you need to work with other departments. If necessary, we will give you further support. I don't know if you've noticed, in the plan, there is a refuse collection point near the school site, proposed school site. When I was in secondary school, I was the first to know if an ambulance has been dispatched because the ambulance depot is right next to the school. I want to make sure that the refuse collection point will not have an impact on students of the school. Will the Education Bureau talk to, say, the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department to relocate the refuse collection center? Move it somewhere else. Yes, the passion for running for education on the part of Xi'an is admirable. We will do our best to expedite the implementation of the project. We try to compress the work schedule. We hope that the works will be completed within 3.5 years. We have already taken into account the procedures, the technology, as well as the construction constraints. We will try to go to the PWSC and the Finance Committee as soon as possible to get your support. The chairman mentioned about a nearby refuse collection point. We will talk to the relevant departments to see if we can do something about it. There is a primary school in Tin Shui Wai. It's right next to a refuse collection center. It is not ideal. From time to time, there was bulky refuse being dumped, which causes safety concern. We have done some liaison work. We try to move the entrance of the school to a different place. We fully identify with the concern of the member. We'll see what we can do. I will leave it to you then. Well, the school sponsor has been waiting for 30 years. Please don't make it more difficult for them by putting a refuse collection point next to it. Last member, Dr. David Lam, 1 minute. The greening area within the campus, would you consider planting common herbal plants in the garden, because it will be a good chance for students to get to know about traditional Chinese medicine, and you can also consult traditional Chinese medicine practitioners as well. Under Secretary, I thank Dr. Lam for his suggestion. The design of the school has incorporated greening work on the rooftop. Greening features can be accommodated in the campus, but we do not require the school to plant certain species. Perhaps members, perhaps we can forward your views to the school sponsor. I see that in a number of schools they have a little garden for Chinese herbal medicine. There will be a chance for students to learn about medicinal plants and Chinese culture. I'm sure schools will welcome the idea. We'll forward your views to the school sponsor. I understand that a majority of members support the project. Do you agree that this proposal is to go to the PWSC? I see support. If that is the case, the project will go to the PWSC. Next item, any other business? There being no other business, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.